Welcome back, YouTube. It's Angli Et Nex here, and today I'm going to be showing you my Templock build. So Scourge Warlock, Hellbringer, Temptation, Feat path. In this video we'll cover the powers, the feats, the boons. I'll go over companions and gear as well, but don't use my character, what I have on my character, as the recommendations. Do kind of what I say here in the video in that regard, just because my Scourge Warlock is not optimized as of yet. So without further ado, let's jump on in here. So as of right now, I'm still using the Lost Mouth set, but for optimization you do want to at least have the Orcus set. The Orcus set will increase your damage, which will increase your healing, and also when you run your Fury spec you will see a higher grade of damage from the Orcus set. Some of the newer sets for Mod 14 may be more best in slot if you plan to only be a Templock, but if you switch back and forth like most of us do, the Orcus set will do you just fine. The main thing that you probably will want is, I have basically all primal, but some of the better gear pieces would be at least the 3 pieces of Castle Ravenloft gear, so the helmet, the chest, and the boots. But you could also do the Hagsrag's chest, which just increases your damage of your ranged powers, which basically everything but your pillar of power counts as ranged, which can in turn increase a little bit of your healing. The more damage you do, the more lifesteal potential you have, so the higher your heals will be. And then the helmet will increase your critical chance, which again just helps you do more damage, higher lifesteal, more heals. The boots, you could do the boots from Castle Ravenloft, or you could do like you could do, I don't think you want to do Heals of Fury because that's melee, but I mean, personally I would just take the recovery from the CRL boots. And then best in slot for arms is going to be either Terror Grips or Jaw Rippers, so that you gain, again, more increased damage, which then buffs up your heals. Right now I'm using Survivor's Wraps because I don't have enough crit to optimize at this point, so I'm just going like a sheer power lock. Primal weapons. Obviously, if you can get Masterwork 3, those are going to be potentially best in slot for a Templock, but either way, with the Primal, you will be healing, so you'll always have that extra 10% damage, so you'll deal more damage over time as you heal throughout the dungeon. And obviously, like I said, I will probably end up going with the boots from Castle Ravenloft, just because the recovery is going to be nice. Helps you get your encounter powers out faster, run up your daily a lot faster as well, and just keeps things moving a little bit more smoothly. Now, for artifacts, your main artifact, you want it to be a buffing artifact, so you could use the Atropal Vassal, I think is what it's called, as the main, or you could use I wouldn't recommend getting Thirst, just because the Thirst set doesn't benefit you so much. You could do a wheel, you could do the lantern like I have here, you could do the Heart of the Black Dragon, you could do the Charm of the Serpent. There's a lot of things that you could do. You could also throw on the Devoted Cleric Sigil as your main, so that you can pump out those dailies. But all in all, this is a pure buff healing build, so it's not meant to deal crazy amounts of damage. It's just meant to heal and buff and support the group. So that's why I'm using the lantern. A, because I already had it, and B, because it does the increases the damage for your whole party against the lit targets by the lantern. Now, what I would suggest is probably dropping the Lost Mouth Horn for the Orcus Shard. You could drop the Sigil of the Controller for, say, like a Fragmented Key of Stars or an Eye of the Giant, something like that. The Cleric Sigil is a good one to keep leveled up, just because if you get into those situations where maybe you're running with a super sweaty group and you want to really try to crank up your dailies, having that Cleric Sigil as an option as your main activated is going to be a good thing. So let's just keep that in mind as we go on. Shirt and pants, you can obviously do the primal shirt and pants if they're increased stats. I wouldn't necessarily look at the item level because some of the stats on there are not extremely good. And again, the Orcus belt or the Demogorgon girdle would be the replacement for the Lost Mouth set, and then the Baphomet's cloak would be the alternate for the Lost Mouth. So ideally you would want a Ring of Rising lifesteal +5, so for double offense slots and to help maintain and keep up your lifesteal. If you get to the point where you're at 9,000, 12,000 plus lifesteal, you could probably switch these off for better stats. So running like Grave Striker, Shadow Stalker rings, +4s and +5s, just to give yourself better stats. But definitely want to keep double offense slots as much as possible. I do have Rising Lifesteal +5s, I just haven't put them onto my Scourge as of yet. So, and then obviously I'm trying to supplement for more crit because my crit is rather low because I was going off the old Power Lock build. So I'm just working with what I have presently. But all of this stuff will be your kind of meta for Templock groups, or for a Templock even running into CRL or Castle Ravenloft. Templock is a really strong thing. The main thing that you just have to focus on is making sure that you're marking those targets. So this is where my stats sit as of right now. She's a little bit underwhelming looking in the stats region, but she heals really well. She could probably pretty close to keep up with my Healadin in heals. And my Healadin heals for like 247k a second. So it's pretty substantial heals, but stats obviously don't look super fantastic. And because I'm standing in port, my power just jumped. But we'll hop into powers here. So Eldritch Blast is a very efficient and fast at will. The really cool thing that works with your at wills, so you're going to be using Eldritch Blast and you're going to be using Hellish Rebuke. The cool thing about Eldritch Blast and Hellish Rebuke is a pretty slow attack, but basically what you can do is you can hit once with your Hellish Rebuke to start the Hellfire, and then you can finish your 3 attack series with Eldritch Blast, and it cuts off, I don't know, probably a second of your time. So it just makes for faster rotations, and you still get the full like 3-hit combo for your Hellish Rebuke proc. So it works really, really well. The main daily that we use is Brood of Hadar, just because it is a damage over time, and it hits very, very hard. And when you activate this, it sends out heals like crazy because you're dealing damage. So this is a pretty burst heal. This is the brunt of your burst healing, I guess I should say. So if someone's going down and you have your daily up, pop this and you'll just see green numbers flying around like crazy. The other biggest chunk of your healing, at least for burst wise, is going to be Killing Flames, just because it has such a huge hit potential. And then also as a Templock, it gains a little bit of a DOT, so you're getting big ticks over time, which dots as a healer help because it's all your heals are proccing off lifesteal and damage. So every time you're damaging something, you have the potential to lifesteal. And you can either use Grasp of Hadar or Dread Theft. I use Dread Theft because I don't care about buffing the team. You would use Grasp of Hadar if you want to be a little bit more selfish with the DPS and the damage, but Dread Theft gives the team a good buff. And this is your sustain for healing. So if anybody is going down at any point, you Dread Theft, and you're going to keep topping them up. You're going to just see, especially if people are getting hit, like if there's a lot of stuff on the ground, or maybe poison damage, like in Temple of Spiders, you're just going to keep topping them up. So you're just going to see green numbers flying like crazy. And especially with the more targets that you hit with Dread Theft, the more potential to lifesteal, thus more healing. And then I'm using Dark One's Blessing to further increase the lifesteal chance. You can swap this off if you have a higher lifesteal chance and severity, but I do not. So, because as I said, my stats are a little bit underwhelming. So, Dark One's Blessing is what I'm currently using. Fiery Bolt is a daily alternative. Like, I would say, if you're just running your daily missions for your campaigns and stuff, you could use this just for faster trash clearing. But other than that, not in the current meta for builds within dungeons. Pillar Power, obviously. This is a huge buff to us, and because of our feats, it's a huge buff to everyone else, and it's again a sustaining heal because we drop the puddle underneath the boss or underneath the mobs. It's dealing damage over time, which has each tick of damage over time has chance to lifesteal, thus seeing green numbers go up and ticking, so you're topping everybody off. I would say that if you are at the point where you don't need Dark One's Blessing, you have enough lifesteal chance and severity, you could throw on Flames of Empowerment just to help supplement and deal a little bit more damage. Not necessary, but you can do that if you're at the end game scenario. Obviously, Hellish Rebuke is our hardest hitting at will, and we are kind of 50-50. Especially for a caster class, we're 50-50, where our at-wills almost make up 50% of our damage, or make up 50% of our rotation, not of our damage. So basically we are making sure we have our Hellish Rebuke procs, we are then supplementing with Eldritch Blast, and then just pulling everything off cooldown as much as possible. And then we'll also go over rotation so that you know proper attack order, which is very important. You can use Tyrannical Curse. This one is neither here nor there. It's not widely used, and I just feel like you still get more out of Brood of Hadar. You could also use Gates of Hell, especially since we're feeded into it, so you gain an extra bonus to that. But Gates of Hell is a target location, so it just takes longer to cast. So No Pity, No Mercy is again one of those things that it's, do you want the DOT, which we do as a healer, or do you want to deal all that damage straight up front? Warlock's Bargain used to be the meta for Templocks. You could basically hit Warlock's Bargain on a boss and just stay there locked in on them, and you're just sucking the life out of the boss essentially, and then healing the team around you. So that's why there's 3 points in it. It's not widely used as of right now. If you're running with like a super sweaty high DPS group but you don't have strong support, and your heals are lacking, maybe because of lack of power share or buffs, you could potentially swap this on to supplement more heals and to keep your DPS and tank alive. And then Prince of Hell, obviously having the resistance ignored is nice, makes you deal more damage, and then obviously lifesteal chance is a huge thing. So that is the other one that will probably never come off. In my opinion, will probably never come off, just because resistance ignored and lifesteal chance, that's huge. And then, like I said, you could use Hadar's Grasp instead of Dread Theft if you wish. Hadar's Grasp does a DOT and a buff for the group, but it's a little bit more selfish. It works a little bit differently than the Dread Theft buff, so you could use that if you wish. It's, again, the way that it was more explained to me, because I went to a Scourge Warlock guru that I know here on the Xbox side, and he just kind of explained why some people use Dread Theft and why some people use Hadar's Grasp. And basically he said Dread Theft is unselfish DPS because it buffs the group, and Hadar's Grasp is selfish DPS essentially. And then I used to run All-Consuming Curse, but he also explained to me that with the lesser curse, your synergies don't proc as well. You actually get less than 50% of your initial proc if they have a lesser curse on them and it consumes that curse, whereas if it consumes your regular curse that you hit with your right bumper for Xbox, or your tab or whatever it may be for PC, or R1 for PS4, it does like 50% less because it's a lesser curse. So your synergies don't work as well, so you don't want to be spreading that lesser curse around. So at least that's the way it was explained to me, which all makes sense. Since I have swapped it off when I haven't had the lesser curses around so much that I'm having to clear and then re-curse with the right bumper, I've been noticing actually higher damage numbers and healing numbers. So we will jump into feats here. I am a human, so I have 3 more feat points than the other classes. So what I would most likely say is you could do 3 of 3 here, 3 of 3 here, and then you really probably want to have this maxed out. Action points is a huge deal in the current meta. Getting your dailies off is a really big thing. So where I would probably pull the points from is right here. Pull these 3 points out, if you have the extra points, that is. Pull these 3 points out, drop them in here, or if you don't have the extra 3 points, so basically what you would do is you get this 5 to 5, and then it would leave you with 1 of 5 or 2 of 5 in Blood Pact, because you definitely want to have these at least 2 of 5 and 3 of 3. So you could pull this out and put it here. So we're basically all but 10 feat points are in Temptation. So when a curse is removed, deal 50% of your weapon damage to that target. So it's just an extra little quick damage proc to give you another chance for lifesteal. And then the damage and damage resistant buffs provided by Pillar Power will last for 5 seconds after leaving the area, and this will affect your team as well. So when you walk through the Pillar of Power and then you walk out and you still got the glowy ooze dripping off of your feet, you'll have that for 5 seconds. So, and then When you critically strike, your lifesteal chance and lifesteal severity are increased by 5% for 4 seconds. That's why you want to stack up crit, because you can keep stacking that up. So, or have 100% uptime on that. Targets of your Hellish Rebuke deal less damage, so we're just, again, debuffing the mobs, debuffing the boss. Whenever you lifesteal, your team gains Revelry, increases run speed and power by 20% for 5 seconds. And all teammates within 50 feet gain lifesteal chance and lifesteal severity. Enemies within 50 feet of you deal 5% less damage and take 5% increased damage, so it's a buff and a debuff in the same feat. And then taking damage causes you to gain 5% stamina. Using your daily power grants you and nearby allies combat advantage for 12 seconds. So that's kind of why at least every 12 seconds you want to be casting a daily to maintain 100% combat advantage on bosses. You should have 100% combat advantage damage on bosses anyway, because you should be kind of four-cornering the boss and then having a cleric or the support kind of rotating around the group, around the boss. So you should have cross paths for combat advantage all the time. But for public groups and things like that, this makes sure that you have combat advantage all the time. And this even goes into mobs. So if you're going into a mob wave and someone doesn't get behind them, you can just activate a daily and bam, you've got combat advantage. Everyone's dealing more damage to the mobs. And then this is the big thing for Templock, is the feat cap. Whenever you do damage to an enemy, you heal your allies for a percentage of that damage. This percentage is equal to your lifesteal chance. This healing is 30% as effective when using area of effect powers, which is why we really only want one big AoE, which is going to be Pillar of Power. You don't want to use Fiery Bolt because that's an AoE, and you could even argue to not use Dread Theft, because I think that is considered an AoE because it can hit multiple targets as you're shooting your laser beam through. So you could, in theory, argue Hadar's Grasp over Dread Theft just for this point, but that's debatable whether you want to lose the buff or not from Dread Theft. The healing components of Vampiric Embrace and Warlock's Bargain now here heal nearby allies, which we don't use those except in really weird situations. Actually, I never use Vampiric Embrace. Warlock's Bargain is a kind of thing. Like, it's a gimmick to me. Like, if you just want to go like super hard heals, that's what you would use, I suppose. And then allies now deal 20% increased damage to enemies affected by your Warlock's Curse. And also, your lifesteal chance is increased by 10%. So, the main part of that is those bottom two lines. Allies now deal 20% damage, more damage to enemies affected by your Warlock's Curse. So, hitting your right bumper, R1, or tab, or whatever the signature spell button is for PC. So you could use that, and then the lifesteal chance by 10%. That's pretty big. So those bottom two sections there is the meat and potatoes of this build, and then the rest is all supplementary. Boons, you're going to go pretty much offense across the board. So power for your guild boons, lifesteal for your defense, and then revive sickness. You could use revive sickness if you're in pub groups, like I generally am. I use revive sickness because they don't like to pick you up if you go down, and sometimes you get caught with people that don't run the dungeons the same way that everybody else does, or the way that you run them, so you can end up, sprinting ahead and then getting caught and getting schwacked. So, and then PvP really isn't that big of a deal, so I'll show it, but I don't do PvP. So Sharndar, basically the bottom row straight all the way across. So you want Elvish Fury for increased power. deal 20% more arcane damage, which these ticks have a chance for lifesteal. Gain action points 2% faster, 400 crit strike, 400 power. Dread Ring, this one kind of bounces around a little bit just for me because I was supplementing for stats. So you could either do power or critical strike. I needed more critical strike, so I took crit strike. And regeneration is useless in battle. So lifesteal, and we want lifesteal anyway because that is how we heal. 3% resistance ignored, so that just adds to your damage, which adds to your healing. And then necrotic damage, which is another chance to lifesteal. Rampaging Madness. You could argue to take this one as well. Taking damage, you have a chance to heal up to 20,000 points, and gaining 4,000 defense afterwards for every proc. So basically that can happen every 10 seconds, essentially, because the defense has a 10-second timer. But so you could argue either way on these. So this is a heal for you. It won't reciprocate to your team. Whereas like with the Healadin, when I heal myself, I heal other people. So this works well with the Healadin. But with this one, you just have a extra damage tick that could proc a heal. And then Icewind Dale, I haven't finished this, but like I said, this tune is not my super main focus, but I just try to make sure that all of my tunes stay up to date on the current metas, and making sure that they run efficiently and the way that the best they possibly can. So combat advantage bonus, stamina gain over incoming healing bonus, because incoming healing bonus, like I said, doesn't help us very much, and doesn't help the team. So by us healing ourselves more, it doesn't help the team, other than we might stay alive for 400 more points, you know. Stamina gain, I would probably, this one's a hard one, depending on where your crit is at. I right now would take critical severity, but if you're at the point where your crit is looking fine, your crit chance is looking fine, you're using maybe a dread, where you don't need all the extra critical severity, especially just 2%, take the recovery, because that's basically 1% recovery right there. So you could do, I would probably say use this one, just because I know when I'm on my temp, I'm always zipping around and my stamina is almost always gone, so you would have that maximum 2,000 power like 100% of the time. So unless you, I mean, for a boss fight build, you could probably do this one because you're not going to be moving around so much. But for the dungeon and proper, yeah, definitely use Cool Resolve. And then you could either do Winter's Bounty or Avalanche. Winter's Bounty just gives you more action points when you kill a target, and it just depends if you're actually getting kills on targets. So, which you have enough DOTs that you could potentially snag some. Or if you're endgame and you're dealing good damage, even as a Templock, definitely take Winter's Bounty. Or you could take this one where you just deal more damage as the stacks add up, and that is another chance to lifesteal. And then the Underdark campaign, power over defense, critical over lifesteal. This one is a tough choice, like I said. If you need the critical like I do, I chose critical. Or if your critical is fine, take the lifesteal. No one uses regeneration. Combat advantage bonus. Stamina regen is pretty useful. And then, let's see. I think we want, the gain 10% damage versus demons. So for CN, T9, I don't think anything beyond T9 has demons in it. T9 just has demons where Orcus counts as demon and undead. I don't think the others count as demons, but definitely take the 10% damage where you can. Tyranny of Dragons, I haven't even started on this character. So power. You could argue hit points as well. It just depends. You got to supplement for what stats you need. But I would go offense pretty much across the board. So power, crit strike, armor pen over defense, and then lifesteal, obviously. You could do the critical severity, or if you need it, I would actually probably say the lifesteal chance for a Templock is a much better choice, so you can focus on other stats and not have to dump a bunch of enchantments into lifesteal. Maze Engine, lifesteal severity, combat advantage bonus. Let's see. Yep, gain action points 3% faster. And then I would use, when you strike a foe, you have a chance to gain the 200 crit. Or you could do, yeah, that's really the only one you want to do at this point. Because you don't have healing spells, so you're just healing based off of your lifesteal. So critical strike is kind of the way to go there. And then power, lifesteal severity, critical, again, critical or recovery, that's the toss-up, just depending on what stats you need. And then critical strike here, you could go recovery if your critical is fine. So, or you could do the bonus 10% lifesteal severity on killing a target. But I don't kill very often, so ramping up the critical to get bigger hits, to basically get bigger heals, was my focus with why I chose this boon. Lifesteal severity, obviously. Stamina gain. Recovery, let's see. Yeah, I would go recovery here because you're going to be missing stamina basically all the time. So you're going to have increased 2,000 recovery all the time. And then this one is kind of neither here nor there. You could either do the HP or the chance to deal 2,000 fire damage. The 2,000 fire damage is just another chance to do a small lifesteal proc, or you could just do the HP and build yourself a little bit more tanky. Let's see. I would say that Chill of Winter is about the only viable thing for this, because Healing Warmth doesn't proc off of lifesteal. It only procs off of healing spells. So unless you're running like a super high deflect build, and then you could run that, but definitely Chill of Winter is the overall best choice there. Cloak Descendancy. These are all relative to what you want to do to the enemy. So you could either debuff them, or you could boost your AP. I would say boost your AP because it helps your team out. More AP is always nice. And then crit strike severity over the incoming healing. And then again, here is the toss-up, lifesteal over 1% lifesteal or 1% recovery. So Aberrant Power is really about the only thing that's viable pretty much for almost any class, unless you have super high deflect rogue or something, but that's just more sustain. Yeah, that's about the only useful thing out of that. So power is what I would do. You don't want to build for dinosaurs because it doesn't help you in other areas. It doesn't help you in dungeons. So definitely power. And then this one's kind of a crapshoot. Regeneration or damage resistance versus dinosaurs. So, I mean, I guess take the regeneration, but and then I would say take defense, because if you're running Assassin's Covenant, it just increases more power for you. Soul Siphon is an option. Lingering Curse is also a pretty good option. See, a lot of these are actually pretty good options. It's just you got to play with it a little bit. See what works best for you, how well you're healing, how well you're dealing damage, how well you're getting procs. So these last ones are kind of up to you in that sense. I would say either do like Death's Blessing or Lingering Curse, my personal opinion. Ravenloft. And this is damage versus undead. This one is a little bit more versatile because in almost every dungeon you're going to run into some form of undead, I believe. So that could be a pretty big thing. But as a support class and not being a DPS, I would say the recovery may be more beneficial. Again, a toss up here. Damage resistance versus undead or the movement speed. Movement speed is good because you need to keep up with the group. And then I would just go maximum hit points here. I wouldn't do control resist. And then this one is good for power share classes. Not necessarily super strong for us. If you were a DPS, you could probably, if you were a Fury build, you could say that's viable because it's just stacking up your power. So you could also do this, I believe. I'm not sure if this procs off of lifesteal. That's the hard thing, is because yes, we are healing other players, but I don't know if this one works because it's not actually healing spells. So that's something that needs to be tested, or just have someone that knows, I guess you could say. So you could do Righteous Sacrifice, especially since good Templocks seem to be running ahead a little bit anyway because they have the lifesteal and sustain to do so. So you could use this to grant your team the extra power, and it stacks up to 5 times. So 5 times 8 is what, 40? So 4,000 power, which could be a pretty good boost. So I would do Transfusion or Righteous Sacrifice for those. Let's talk companions. Don't, obviously, like I said before, don't go off of what I have here because this is not optimized at all. Obviously, my Fire Archon is my bonding companion, but bonding companions need to have your best, biggest investment before your character. Because that is where you get a huge chunk of extra stats. So making sure you can get your bondings as high as you possibly can, making sure you have the highest enchants on your bonding companion that you can, making sure that they just have really good stats. So you could do the Fire Archon. I wouldn't suggest using it as your bonding companion. I would get a Con Artist or a Chilton Tiger, at least here in Mod 14. Mod 15, I believe there's a new companion that people are using. I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but there's a new companion in Mod 15 that some people are using as a better one. You could also use like a Razorwood, things like that. You could use the Broomstick if you got the Broomstick out of the lock boxes or from the Halloween event. And then all this is just tests with DOTs that I was working on. Some of it didn't work. This guy works best when he's blue or above, but with the changes to the Scourge's DOTs, it made it a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. So basically what I would do is get your bonding companion and then have either offensive stat supplementary companions. So get something that gives you power, critical severity, things like that, or like run a couple archons to give you the increased damage, or just run all lifesteal companions except for your bonding companion, to really ramp up the lifesteal and help you heal. And that'll again free up some extra space for more damage later on. Since you have lifesteal coming passively from your companions, you can then focus more on putting offensive stats on your character so that you can deal more damage, i.e. hit harder. And then mounts, Artificer's Persuasion, especially as a support role, definitely want that. The best use of this is with the Heart of the Black Dragon, so if you use that, Artificer's Persuasion will be procced quite often. Gladiator's Guile to keep up. Shepherd's Devotion on everyone. Everyone should use Shepherd's Devotion. I don't care if you're the biggest swinging DPS out there, use Shepherd's Devotion. Protector's Camaraderie is not necessary. You could actually swap that out for maybe something with like Cavalry's Warning or something like that to give further buffs. But you could even swap it for Assassin's Covenant if you've got him out with Assassin's Covenant. And then the same thing with Magistrate's Patience. Not super extremely useful, but this is kind of just what I have for this character at this present time. So, but these at least top three are a must for almost any class, like Gladiator's Guile and Shepherd's Devotion, any class. Artificer's Persuasion on almost every support class except for maybe a Devo, unless your Devo is running a Heart of the Black, which is rare. Usually it's like a Thirst or a Wheel of Elements, something like that. But that's pretty much it, guys. Pretty simple builds. I will hop over to the Stronghold, show you some rotations here, just so that you can see the proper way to hit these, the proper way to hit your powers, the proper order, I guess you should say. Or I should say, not you. Not you guys. Me. Me! And also, as you see in the left-hand corner there, I stream on Twitch pretty much every night, 9:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, and as you also see right there, I am part of a Neverwinter stream team. So, definitely come check us out. Support me, support the team, because we are trying to build a community that is getting a little bit more, with the focus of getting more acknowledgement from the content creators from the game. So from Arc, from Cryptic, about getting support for YouTubers, streamers, all that stuff for us, because we are helping to further grow their brand, grow their game. So definitely come in, check us out. And you can see mine is there on the left hand side, ANGLI_ET_NEX, Angli Et Nex. Alright, so when you first come in, most of the time you're going to be shadow slipping, so I'll kind of do that. Shadow slip in, curse your targets, drop your pillar, and then most of the time if you have a daily up, Brood of Hadar, Dread Theft, try to hit as many targets as possible. And then you can cast Hellish Rebuke and Eldritch Blast while you are casting Dread Theft. That's what's really cool about the Dread Theft as of right now. So, and then to finish off, you would hit Killing Flames. I just got busy talking and trying to see what the heck I was doing here. But, so Curse, Pillar of Power, Brood of Hadar, Dread Theft, move it to hit as many targets as possible, hitting your Eldritch Blast while you're doing so, and then Killing Flames, bam, should be good to go. And the Killing Flames does a little DOT, so you'll be able to help keep everyone topped off health-wise. So, and as you can see, I'm basically just killing the... I have Pillar of Power going, which is doing a little bit of damage, but it's basically just buffing me. And then I'm keeping this dummy dead just by hitting Eldritch Blast. So, and I don't have a lot of crit, as you guys saw. I only have like 10,000 crit. So, right now, this is what I proc to. So 12,000 crit isn't super good. I should be sitting at probably 17 before procking to get to that close, you know, over the 92% for crit chance. But and make sure you're cursing as soon as you consume a curse, which would be with this setup is only Killing Flames. Dread Theft does have curse energy, but it doesn't consume the curse, and I don't know why the curse keeps going away on that dummy, unless my companion is, yeah, that's weird. Must just be bugged. But so you can see here, didn't consume the curse either. That's weird. Anyhow, making sure that you are recursing, cursing, and more cursing, making sure that those curses stay up so your team is dealing that 20% extra damage to them. So, and then basically the same rotation for Grasp of Hadar, just the only difference will be curses in between. So you'll curse, come in, Pillar of Power, Broods of Hadar, curse, Grasp of Hadar, curse, Killing Flames, curse, rinse and repeat. So you just got to do curses in between each ability because they do consume the curse. So you want to keep that up. A, to maximize your damage output, and B, to make sure that the curse stays up, especially in boss fights. So, but that is pretty much it. Easy rotations, easy build. Not a super expensive thing either. All of the gear that you need can be essentially, you could grind for it. You don't have to buy really anything other than maybe some artifacts. But if you have other classes, you can supplement the stats that you need to with the free sigils. So, and as always, guys, I appreciate all of your support. Definitely come and check us out at the stream time, so 9:30 Pacific Standard Time, and then intermittently day streams throughout the week. Just depends on what I have going on and how much content I'm having to put out. But come and support our team, the Gaming to Greatness team. Also, come and join the team. We have Discord. We have a lot of tools, a lot of things that you can use to your advantage. Just a really great community. And again, also support the stream team. And I love you guys. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Have a great rest of your day, and happy adventuring.